The more skillful a meditator he is, the more ways and means he can find of uplifting his mind. When the mental faculties are strengthened, zeal, energy, purity of consciousness, and investigation, the four bases of success, adhipata, are engendered and developed. Thus the way of thinking just described is effective in achieving success in the practice. Some may try to stimulate their minds to practice by thinking of wealth, name and fame, and the like. But that is too low an objective to engender will or zeal. It cannot be compared with the inspiration found in practicing out of regard for one's parents, for a person having great expectation of one, for the Buddha, or the superiority of the teaching, and of course the best stimulus of all is the thought of one's own freedom. To sum up, if the mind is slack and indolent, it should be made alert, by uplifting it in the way described. The second obstacle in this pair is overexertion, which gives rise to agitation. Slackness and agitation are exactly opposite states of mind, so the ways of getting rid of them are quite distinct. To overcome agitation, the meditator is advised to restrain the mind and be free from agitation. To overexert is to be too energetic. As always, the meditator must avoid extremes and keep to the golden mean. To be energetic is good, but only in moderation. The meditator must not be inspired by vanity, not practice with an eager appetite as the common worldling does. When a person is overenergetic, craving, vanity, stubbornness, and ignorance arise. The meditator must know just how much exertion is required to achieve success. The habit of using too much bodily and mental power gives rise to agitation. For example, forcing oneself to sit in meditation for long periods results in bodily pain, which in its turn agitates the mind. If, while developing insight, one contemplates with too much eagerness and too little steady watchfulness, the mind will be easily agitated.
When either the body or the mind is not at ease, not in its normal state, the mind cannot be restrained. In such a condition sleep is impossible, for though the body may be sleeping, the mind is actively dreaming. The meditator can succeed in restraining his mind by directly guarding it and by checking the cause of its agitation. Gradually eradicating the outer and inner, that is, physical and mental causes, he gets rid of the agitation itself. In some cases, both body and mind should be given a rest for some time. To rest the body and the mind, the practice should be temporarily stopped, or the meditator should temporarily stop practicing with a subtle object of concentration and come down to a lower stage with a gross object. These are examples of different methods for keeping energy within the required limit. The meditator should not use force or coercion in restraining the mind any more than the farmer should seize his cow by the horns and force it to eat grass, or use his sickle so vigorously that he breaks it. To quieten his agitated mind, the meditator must use his intelligence. These two obstacles are more difficult to deal with than any of the preceding ones. They arise more easily, and there are many more things relating to them that have to be studied, controlled, and rectified. We come now to the last pair. 17. Desire, raga, due to oversensitivity. 18. Ill will, vyapada, due to lack of feeling or dullness. The first of these consists in the mind's being excessively keen and alive to impressions. It is too sensitive in that it falsely expands the horizon of its sensitivity. Here daydreaming is included. True, the mind in this state is, in a way, observant and perceptive, but its sensitivity is out of control and hence harmful to concentration. Sensitivity, useful in other situations, may be a barrier to the development of concentration. The imagination and sensitivity of the artist are very useful in the creating of a wonderful work of art.
But in the practice of concentration they can be thoroughly destructive. For the meditator, oversensitivity of mind is truly a great source of difficulty. Everyone naturally likes attractive objects, and when, in the concentrated state, a person becomes more perceptive and sensitive than usual, this instinctive liking is very often transformed into a passion resembling sensual desire, kamachanda. To free the mind of this obstacle, the meditator is advised to be fully aware, sampajano, of the mind and be free from passion. To understand this method clearly, we must consider the literal meanings of the terms used. The obstacle here is the condition in which the mind is oversensitive, abhinata. Abhinata means literally knowing much, which here implies knowing too much. The way to overcome this is to be sampajano, fully aware. Literally, sampajano means knowing thoroughly, altogether. When the literal meanings are considered, it can easily be seen that these two conditions are totally opposed to each other. In the first case, abhinada, the meditator is bemused, his thoughts and fantasies run on uncontrolled. In the second, sampajano, he is thoroughly careful, aware, and mindful. Obviously, full awareness and mindfulness are instrumental in getting rid of oversensitivity and preventing the arising of passion. The meditator should apply this full awareness and mindfulness in two ways. Firstly, he should be careful not to grasp at external forms, sounds, smells, tastes, and tangible objects in such a way as to give rise to pleasant feelings. Secondly, he should not let the mind grasp at internal, mental, objects or dwell on past experiences. The power of imagination and the tendency to interpret sense objects should be well controlled. For instance, if the meditator sees an object of a particular shape and pattern, he must beware. He must not, as is his habit, project some image which will give rise to sensual desire. The controlling of this inherent tendency to project requires full awareness and a high degree of mindfulness. In short, oversensitivity, which leads to passion, is to be prevented and cured with mindfulness and full awareness. Note that the contemplation of foulness, asubhakamana, is not recommended. That practice would not be appropriate in this situation, differing as it does from that described in Chapter 3. The obstacle here is oversensitivity due to the mind's tendency to project images in its characteristically bizarre fashion. This tendency must be checked with mindfulness and awareness. Here the contemplation of foulness would have the wrong effect. Even prolonged contemplation of foulness will not destroy this particular obstacle. The second obstacle in this pair is just the opposite of the first. Dullness and lack of feeling imply absence of illuminating knowledge, absence of joyful and tranquilizing feelings. The mind, being dull for want of clear comprehension, is finally overcome by ill will. Here ill will means not just hatred, but dissatisfaction of any kind. It means in particular paiga, that is, vexation and uneasiness, annoyance with other people, with oneself, with external objects, or with nothing in particular. It means irritation, or just a bad mood. Ill will is to be overcome in the same way as desire. To generate loving kindness, metabhavana, is not advisable. Instead, mindfulness and full awareness should be developed as before. When one is mindful and fully aware, dullness and obscurity cannot arise. Thus both obstacles of this pair are to be overcome by developing uninterrupted mindfulness and awareness. This obstacle is called in Pali apanada, which means not bright, not luminous, dull, and therefore to be overcome only by mindfulness and awareness. These 18 obstacles in 9 pairs are called in Pali the upakalisa. They are also known as the perils, because they are dangerous to the practice of concentration.
When any of them arises, both body and mind become troubled, agitated. When they are absent, concentration can be developed easily. Other obstacles, known as the minor obstacles, are relatively unimportant. They can easily be overcome once these major ones have been destroyed. A mind freed of all these obstacles is said to be fully purified, or to have attained unique excellence, ikata. Unique excellence of mind has the following 4 levels. 1. Unique excellence due to making gifts or offerings, for people who delight in making offerings. 2. Unique excellence due to the manifestation of the sign of concentration, for those who practice tranquility meditation. 3. Unique excellence due to the clear comprehension of impermanence, unsatisfactoriness, and non-selfhood, for those who develop insight meditation. 4. Unique excellence due to the realization of the extinction of suffering, for the noble ones. Of these 4 levels, we are here concerned with the second, the steady and clear manifestation of the sign. This unique excellence has 3 aspects, which are characteristics of the first absorption, pahamajana. Their arising indicates perfection in developing concentration at the first level. These 3 aspects are: 1. Mental brightness, due to perfection in every point of the practice. When the mind has overcome all the 18 obstacles in the way described, the practice progressively attains perfection and the mind becomes bright. 2. Mental maturity. Due to equanimity, here the mind, being undisturbed by obstacles, is set at rest and becomes cool. This state of equanimity, another factor of the first absorption, brings about mental maturity. 3. Joy. Due to knowledge, jnana, here the mind, being endowed with brightness and maturity, is in a joyful state. This joy results from the knowledge of the destruction of the obstacles and of the factors of jhana. Experiencing the rapture and happiness that come of detachment, the mind becomes joyful.
These three are characteristics of the first absorption or jhana, thus this first jhana is glorious in its beginning, glorious in its progress, and glorious in its consummation. It is glorious in its beginning because the mind is bright owing to the perfection of the practice. Glorious in its progress because the mind attains maturity through equanimity. And glorious in its consummation because the mind is made joyful by knowledge of the destruction of the obstacles. In order to understand these three, it is important to know about the 5 hindrances and the 5 factors of the first jhana. This knowledge will also show us clearly how the mind, having passed through the stages of acquired sign and counterpart sign, attains full concentration, anapanasati, in the first jhana. Chapter 7, Hindrances and Jhana Factors. The Pali term for hindrance is nivara. It implies something that destroys the harmonious condition of the mind, that is, its unique excellence. Each of the hindrances destroys one particular factor of the mind's unique excellence, and in considering them, we shall pair them off accordingly. 1. The hindrance of sensual desire, kamachanda, is paired with its opposite, renunciation, nikama. Sensual desire is satisfaction with, absorption in, or delight in, anything pleasant, anything which allures and fascinates the mind. Defiling its brightness, it is like a red dye, which, when mixed with clear water, makes it no longer clear, so that things lying on the bottom cannot be seen. The opposite factor, renunciation, is the quality of a mind that is not tempted, not troubled, not clouded by sensual desire. It is the first factor of unique excellence. 2. Ill will, vyapada, is paired with goodwill, avyapada. A mind having ill will is defiled by anger, dosa, in the form of disagreement, discontent, annoyance, or any such undesirable and harmful state. In the state of ill will the mind is boiling,
and therefore not clear, just as water when it is boiling is no longer clear, so that things lying on the bottom cannot be seen. Goodwill implies a mind that is cool, peaceful, free from any displeasing quality, not irritated in any way. It is the second factor of unique excellence. 3. Torpor, phinamida, is paired with perception of light, aloka sa unspecified currency A. Torpor means here dullness, apathy, drowsiness, boredom. The mind overpowered by this hindrance loses its brightness, just as pure water loses its clarity when overgrown by algae and weeds. So that things like pebbles lying on the bottom cannot be seen. Thus torpor is a hindrance, damaging the mind, making it unworkable. Perception of light is a form of practice that gives rise to constant, steady bright light resembling sunshine. This light and the time of its appearance are conditioned by character and training. The development of perception of light, making the mind bright as if perceiving sunshine, enables one to overcome sleepiness, dullness, and laxity. It enables one to sleep soundly when one does sleep, and when awake, to be wide awake. Perception of light is thus the very best means of awakening the mind, the antidote for torpor. 4. Restlessness and worry, adhakakakaka, is paired with steadiness, avikapa. Adhakakakaka means restlessness, vexation, worry. The difference between adhaka and kakaka can be understood if the literal meanings of the terms are considered. Adhaka has the meaning of bursting out, spreading, scattering. It is the spreading out or scattering of thoughts as a result of too much liking or interest. Kakaka is uneasiness and worry through not knowing how to do something, and where, or, knowing this, being dissatisfied, not pleased. This happens when one is agitated by outward things because of one's temperament or through excessive and prolonged effort, which makes everything go wrong.